Okay, why don't we get started? I apologize for the capacity here. Who knew that Michael Gatto was so famous and popular? I did. Michael Gatto is a graduate. He got his Master of Architecture here at the School of Architecture a couple of years ago, 2001. And I worked with Michael on his first solar decathlon. Michael went on to win a Rose Fellowship. And, he works now for Foundation Communities. And he's also started a new organization called the Austin Community Design and Development Collaboration. So he's going to talk about the Rose Fellowship.
Hey, Andy, can you be a little louder?
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Without further ado, here's Michael Gatto.
Thank you. Thank you all for coming in. Really sorry about the mix-up. I feel badly because all those students left. But I'm very grateful to Andy for setting this up, and Michael as well thanks for inviting me, and Stephen Moore as well. My intention today is to inform, persuade, and inspire you by telling a little bit of my story, the story of my experiences at Foundation Communities, and the hopeful continuation of that through the Austin Community Design and Development Center. I'm planning to present for about 30 to 40 minutes, and then I'm hoping for a lively discussion afterwards. So if you wouldn't mind holding your questions, and that way I can just keep rolling. Everything that I will present today is as a result of the hardworking folks at Foundation Communities, and in particular our very progressive thinking executive director, Walter. Without Foundation Communities, none of this would be possible. So a little bit about Foundation Communities. Our mission is to provide housing, create housing where families succeed, which means more than just housing. In addition to housing, 2,000 families among 11 properties in Austin and 3 properties in North Texas, which makes us a regional housing provider. Foundation Communities also provides resident services in the form of educational programs at community learning centers and savings programs which provide 2-for-1 matches, and which allow folks to save to either go to school, buy a home, or start a business. That's Foundation Communities leases apartments to families and individuals earning 60% of median family income or less. That's the affordability guideline. I'm working at Foundation Communities because of the Rose Architectural Fellowship, which creates partnerships between new architects and community-based organizations to direct the skills and passions of the architects in the service of low and moderate income communities. The fellowship is designed to promote the value of quality design and green building in affordable housing and encourages architects to become lifelong leaders in public service and community development. The Rose Fellowship paid my salary for the first 3 years that I was at Foundation Communities. This is a photo of the Rose Fellows on retreat in New York in 2005. One of the great things about the fellowship is that it is truly a fellowship in that we're able to collaborate, share ideas, and inspire each other. The Rose Fellowship is the brainchild of Jonathan Rose, who is sponsoring some of the most exciting work in affordable housing projects around the country. There have been 22 fellows to date, and the range of their work is very broad, and I'm hoping today to give you just a small snapshot of the breadth of the work. In all cases, the single premise unites the fellowship with a commitment to empowering communities through the design of healthy homes that are beneficial to individual residents and the environment. These photos show the work of Nathaniel Coram, who was also a graduate of the School of Architecture here at UT. He partnered with the Red Feather Development Group out west and did work in Indian country, building straw bale homes for Native American elders, Cheyenne, and Hopi elders. Part of his project was to create prototype homes that could then be propagated. That's a photo of Nathaniel in the upper corner there. So we go from Indian country out west to Harlem in New York City. A photo of Andy Brooks, who's working with Harlem's Congregation for Community Improvement in Harlem, converting these walk-ups into really beautiful homes. And we go to rural Alabama, where Victoria Ballard Bell is working through a partner organization called Design Corps in a rural area, Marion County. She designed a combination daycare facility and job training center, and part of her project was most of the fundraising for this. What this slide is about is that it takes a village to make a Rose Fellow. What I would like to describe is the network that the fellowship helps you to create that supports the work. First of all, you have to apply with a partner organization. So you find some housing group to partner with. In this case, some housing group happen to be Foundation Communities here in Austin. And then you need to get multiple letters of recommendation, and thus the network starts. I got letters of recommendation from Stephen Moore. It's very helpful. From Pliny Fisk at the Center for Maximum Potential Building Systems. And thus, if the fellowship is awarded, they're automatically part of the network. So in addition to the partner organization and those folks, I did my architectural internship at Foundation Communities. And so I had my IDP supervisor, who happened to be my boss, John Rickard, as part of the network. And I also had an IDP mentor, Rich McMath, who's with the Green Building Program here in Austin. He's a residential specialist. Also a graduate of the School of Architecture. In addition to that, I needed a community development specialist mentor, who's with us today, if he wasn't forced to leave, Scott Marks. Unfortunately. And so there was established a connection with UT, a connection with the Center for Maximum Potential Building Systems, and these others that I mentioned locally. And then nationally, there's a connection to the current and former Rose Fellows, Enterprise Community Partners, which is the folks who are the folks that administer the Rose Fellowship. They're a national intermediary that helps smaller local groups like Foundation Communities do their thing, as well as the Association for Communities Design. So these photos, there's some of my mentors up there and down here. This is a photo of the orientation for the Rose Fellowship, which occurred in August of 2003 here in Austin at the Center for Maximum Potential Building Systems. Okay. My work plan at Foundation Communities focused on two things: community learning centers and housing. I worked on 4 community learning centers, and these learning centers are where we deliver the services such as after-school programs for kids, summer programs for children of the residents, and these are free, as well as adult education, such as English as a second language and financial literacy. All these programs are free, and they're offered on-site in these community learning centers. There's 800 children of our residents that benefit from these programs annually. So starting in the upper left-hand corner, Peters Colony Learning Center in Carrollton, Texas, was a conversion of 2 two-bedroom units into a learning center. Shadowbrook Learning Center in Arlington, Texas, was an expansion of a clubhouse. Daffodil was a mini learning center, the interior fit-out of a utility room, and I'm going to focus today on the Vintage Creek Learning Center, which was a new construction, the only fully new construction. This is one of my favorite photographs of the Vintage Creek Learning Center because it was taken very close to the spring equinox at around midday. And it shows that the calculations that we did to size the overhangs were about right. So the rule of thumb that I usually use is size the overhang so that at noon on the equinox, the shadow is cast basically at the bottom of the windowsill. So from that point on, you're not letting the summer sun into that space. These have deep overhangs, and a little bit more about what this learning center actually is. It's a 4,800 square foot facility, 2 stories, obviously. It's our largest learning center to date. Every time we had built a learning center prior to this, we had used the space up, and we did that here. After Katrina hit, we housed social workers here. They also house the Open Minds Project. I house an office there. The Open Minds Project also happens here. So a little bit more about green building. What we have here as far as materials is a locally quarried limestone, and for those are high-performance windows, dual pane, low E. This is the west facade of the Finnish Creek Learning Center. Note the location of the deciduous trees on the west side. We actually have shading on both the east and the west, and an open in front on the south, which is pretty much ideal orientation. The air intake for the HVAC system is up here in this tower. We've got supply on one side and actually the exhaust on the other. And back in here that we have located an energy recovery ventilator, or a heat exchanger, which has allowed us to precondition all the incoming air and save a lot of energy. This bay-lit stairwell wraps around an elevator shaft where we have a steer traction elevator, which consumes a lot less energy than a standard hydraulic elevator. So the focus, as far as green building strategy in this building, was on energy efficiency, as I just described, and on indoor air quality. So what you see there is a linoleum floor that has very low emissions and is made out of recycled materials. And we also, to save energy, we are using as much daylight as possible. There's a clear story that lights this room, and there's no light switches in this building. It's all motion detectors and photocells. I'm not sure we'll ever do that again, but we thought we'd try it. This is a photograph of the kitchen. We have kitchens in all our learning centers for snack time, for the after-school programs and the summer programs. All of these cabinets were custom made with wheat board, which is a rapidly renewable material made from wheat straw and contains no urea formaldehyde. Overall, we achieved 2 stars on the City of Austin Commercial Green Building Rating System for this building. Even though it's really built like a big house, it's not housing anyone, so we used the commercial rating tool. We achieved 2 stars, and that was worth at the time a sustainability bonus of $4,000, which, in addition to the energy rebates that we got of $2,000, made for a nice little bump at the end of the project. So since I started talking rebates, here's a slide that shows some of the dollars related to this building. I feel like I would be amiss if I were to stand here and talk to you about affordable housing without showing where some of the money comes from for something like this. I'm really blessed because at Foundation Communities we have a very strong fundraising department, grant writers. They were hamstrung a little bit on this project because they were not able to use typical housing funding sources because this isn't housing, it's a community learning center. So we ended up with a funding gap at the end of the project, but you can see the range of sources of where some of the money comes from. Neighborhood Reinvestment is now renamed NeighborWorks America. They're another national intermediary that they work with very closely on many projects, pre-development grants, post-development grants, etc. Also part of my work plan at Foundation Communities was greening our operations. And just to give you a small example of how the network works, one day Pliny Fisk was having lunch with Walter Moreau, our executive director, and he mentioned to Walter the fact that the City of Austin, Austin Energy, has this wonderful Green Choice program where you can buy renewable energy. And you can lock your price in so that you'll never have an increase in fuel charge for 5-6 years, depending on what the contract is. And so Walter looked at me and he said, "Why are you working on this?" So there's one of many examples where our executive director is several steps ahead of me as far as green building. So we bought enough green choice power. At one time, every bill that foundation communities paid, every electric bill, was green choice. It's no longer the case now, but we bought enough power to qualify for this free advertising on I-35. In addition to off-site renewable energy, we did some on-site renewable energy projects. Here we added a solar electric array to an existing learning center at Sierra Ridge, and this was, of course, funded through the solar rebate program that Austin Energy provides. This is another array that we installed at our first SRO Garden Terrace in South Austin. And we did enough on-site renewable energy to qualify for this billboard. We have, I believe, over 70 kilowatts installed right now in 4 locations. And as I'll show later, we're working on another one. Okay, so the last project I'm going to describe is housing. This is an image of, this is the before, of the Spring Terrace SRO, which is located at I-35 in St. John's. This was formerly the Hearthside Extended Stay Hotel that went into foreclosure, and Foundation Communities purchased it from the bank. This is an adaptive reuse of this hotel to convert it into 140 efficiency apartments. This is the main entry before the conversion, and this is that same area after the conversion. We basically turned the parking lot directly in front of the main entry into a landscaped courtyard because there was really no green space for the residents to enjoy anywhere on this site. And it is very close to the I-35 frontage, so we wanted to also create a little bit of a buffer here. This courtyard was designed by Brink Bicklin of Groundmasters Land Design, and here you can see how we integrated some of the green building, more obvious green building strategies into the courtyard. We've got a 13,500 gallon cistern here, the overflow, and this was designed by Mark Licklider, who's here with us today, of Sustainable Homesteads. The overflow flows down this dry creek into this all-weather pond, and when that overflows, it goes into the city's storm sewer system. This is a photograph of that while it's under construction. A close-up of the rainwater harvesting cistern and the overflow. We harvest rainwater off of about 10,000 square feet of roof. We irrigate about 10,000 square feet of courtyard, and the cistern is 13,500 gallons. And the model says that if we get average rainfall, we'll have enough to water that courtyard with no additional potable water from the city. However, how often do we get average rainfall? So we have a backup, and that's city water. Here's an image of the lobby. Inset is before. The large photograph is what it looks like after. One of the things we added was these windows to the corridor to create more of a sense of community where you had visual access into the lobby and lounges, and also where you could bring some daylight into the corridors, which were really dark. It took some serious negotiation to get these windows on rated walls with code officials, but we found a good solution. This is another image of the lobby where we added a fountain next to the front desk, and we carried some of that fountain shade through the front desk countertop there. These are images of the lounges. The top 2 images are the 3rd floor lounge, where we have not only a TV area, a hangout area, but also a small community kitchen, which we often provide in our SROs. And these are the 2 first floor lounges. The interior design of this project was done by Laura Britt Design. Okay, this is a resident room. This is the smallest resident room. There's 5 floor plans. This is the smallest. Every room comes furnished with a bed, a nightstand, and a dresser. And the great thing about this conversion was the Hearthside Extended Stay Hotel had kitchenettes already and a private bath in each room already, and that's what each room comes with. But we did redo all the finishes, including that ceramic tile on the floor. We think that's a very green solution because Ceramic tile is very durable and it's low maintenance. And it also happened to be locally manufactured. In fact, we had such a large order for this, over 30,000 square feet, that even though the original tile that we wanted to match had been discontinued, the company made another run for us. It's really great. Some of the more obvious green building features here, in addition to things you don't see, like low VOC paints, adhesives, and sealants, and formaldehyde-free cabinetry, would be the solar thermal system. We actually, our grant writers at Foundation Communities were able to get a local grant to cover a portion of about a third of the cost of this. And once we got that grant, we had no choice but to do it, which I was very happy about. We expect that this system will save us about $2,000 a year in natural gas costs. And we also have a 17 or 18 kilowatt solar electric array here, which was, of course, rebated through the solar rebate program in Austin. So where did the money come from for this project? We've got, on this one, $2 million from the city. Big chunk of change there. Texas Department of Housing and Community Affairs, big contributors. Federal Home Loan Bank of Dallas. I highlighted the specific grants that are related to green building here, and this includes a Home Depot grant through NeighborWorks America, as well as an Enterprise Green Communities Initiative grant of $50,000. And we also got a Kresge Green Building Initiative, which was actually for a lot of the green design work. Now, what comes with that Enterprise Green Communities grant of $50,000 is a requirement to comply with their green communities, green building checklist, which is a lot like LEED, only there's more mandatory requirements. We got big points on that checklist for the fact that we were doing an adaptive reuse, which is a very green thing to do, and the fact that the building happened to be on mass transit line. So just the siting of the building alone scored us big points, and it's a big energy savings as far as following those. So as I approached the end of my fellowship, I really loved this work, and I was thinking, how can this work continue? It wasn't obvious to me that Foundation Communities would continue to need in-house design. Even though Walter, our executive director, was willing to hire me before I got the fellowship, it wasn't obvious that I would be able to continue. So I started to think of ways of how to continue this work and possibly jump scale. And through the Rose Fellowship, I've been exposed to the idea of community design centers. And here's an image taken from a community design center in San Francisco called Asian Neighborhood Design that shows people doing people in a watershed planning workshop. So what is community design? Community design is about participatory design. It's about pulling together the resources of the community and all the stakeholders in the community in a design process. And it also promotes change from the neighborhood to the regional scale. Community design centers are dedicated to providing planning, design, and development services to low and moderate income communities. And they're a unique vehicle through which a crucial array of community development services become available to the citizenry. There's about 40 community design centers around the country right now. And the idea here is to create one for Austin. When I bring this idea up to folks, a lot of times I get a blank stare, and I'm wondering how many in this room have ever heard of a community design center before. So, more than half. That's good. So just a little bit about the range of services and the scope that other community design centers around the country provide. Here's a slide of Asian Neighborhood Design. This is a full-service community design center. They do full-service architectural, they do community planning through such things as neighborhood profiles and policy work, they do employment training, and they do family and youth resources. Asian Neighborhood Design started about 30 years ago by a group of graduate students at Berkeley who built furniture for people who had very small living spaces to help them make those spaces more efficient, and they grew from there. And they now have their furniture design and manufacturing back online. So that's one end of the spectrum: full service, policy work, employment training, youth services. On the other end of the spectrum is the Community Design Center of Pittsburgh, which is basically a place that brokers resources. You call them, you say, I need to put an addition on my house, or we want to do a community center, and they help connect you with the right resources in the community to do the architecture, to do the planning, etc. They also have a grant program that will help you pay for some of that, and they'll facilitate that. So the idea is that the Austin Community Design and Development Center would be somewhere between those extremes. The mission of the Design Center is to improve the quality of life for all by providing sustainable design, planning, and development services to low and moderate income individuals, families, and neighborhoods. And I need to point out and acknowledge at this moment that there were several student groups who helped contribute to the formation of the ACDDC, including those in Michael Oden and Elizabeth Danzy's class who did benchmarking work, and Liz Mueller's class who looked at rural design centers, and in Stephen Moore's Topics in Sustainable Development class who created a business plan. We've definitely gotten a lot of help putting this together. So the development strategy is to build, of course, build on the experience of these foundation communities projects and jump scale. In other words, provide these services to other chodos around Austin, smaller groups who may not have the same capacity, to share or transfer the technology of developing these kinds of housing and community learning centers, etc. So in addition to building on that experience, the establishment of key relationships is important, and that's with the City of Austin, with the University of Texas, and with the chodos around town. Also establish a central storefront presence, and of course, at all levels, emphasize green building and sustainable development. The intention is for ACDDC to be as deep a shade of green as possible. So this is the first project of the Austin Community Design and Development Center. It's a joint project with Foundation Communities, which is the conversion of the former Ramada Inn at Bannister and Ben White into 100 more units of SRO housing. And because I'm a staff member at Foundation Communities and I'm president of the Austin Community Design and Development Center, by wearing both hats at the same time, I can basically work on this project for both. So the role that I'm playing there is I'm the sustainable design consultant and I'm the project manager. So I work with the architects. We've hired Pi Architects for this, the construction manager, plus all the subcontractors that work directly for the developer Foundation Communities, such as solar electric and solar thermal contractors, and work to coordinate their work with all the others. So this is a rendering of what the Ramada Inn, now Oak Inn, soon to be Skyline Terrace, would look like after the conversion is complete, at least from 290 to 71, where we have solar thermal and solar electric panels on the roof. Now, this is an example of where the project manager needs to do a lot of coordination, because that is a concrete tile roof, which is not easy to fasten solar thermal and solar electric panels to. So working those issues with both of those contractors and the construction manager, who will hire the roofer, is part of the challenge of green building. So this project is a tax credit project, which means it's funded in part by low-income housing tax credits, which were awarded to Foundation Communities by the Texas Department of Housing and Community Affairs. Because it's a tax credit project, the entity that owns it is a for-profit entity. Because there's a for-profit entity that owns it, we are able to get solar credits for the solar thermal and solar electric, just like the federal tax credit for renewable energy. our investors will be able to benefit from those. Those get sold to the investors just like the low-income housing tax credits. We don't get 99 cents on the dollar for those, but we still get this credit. So part of the challenge of green building is taking advantage of federal tax credits. We also got an Enterprise Green Communities grant on this project, $40,000. So our green building tool is their checklist as well. So there's some, definitely I see many opportunities for the Austin Community Design and Development Center. I am also on the Zero Energy Capable Home Task Force, and there's some members here. Thank you for coming. Our goal is to make all new homes built in Austin by the year 2015 zero energy capable, or net zero energy capable. So that will definitely have an impact on affordable housing, and so that I think there's an opportunity for the Design Center to work with that issue. There's also the newly announced Austin Climate Protection Plan, which is a wonderful plan, but as to how it gets implemented and how it affects affordable housing providers, I think the Design Center can have a role to play in that. Before I get too deeply into the next slide, which is my conclusion, I wanted to point out what the status of the Community Design Center is at this moment in time. The Design Center was incorporated in Texas as a nonprofit last August, actually August 9th. My fellowship ended August 1st. We incorporated the Design Center on August 9th. So that was pretty good. We have a board of directors. Many of them are here today. We also have a board of advisors. We've applied to the IRS for tax-exempt status, 501c3, and that application is pending. And we're currently fundraising, considering projects, other projects, and growing our board. So to summarize, how does one meet the challenge of green affordable housing? One of the most important ingredients is a strong community development corporation such as Foundation Communities. And I can't emphasize that enough. The next is the Rhodes Fellowship and a community design network that connects one to. Having an intern architect whose salary is paid for you for 3 years, I think, is a good way to meet the green affordable housing challenge. Also, green grants, knowing where they are, knowing how to go for them, which includes not only the Home Depot Foundation and Kresge, but also, of course, Enterprise Green Communities. And the Green Communities Initiative itself, which has its own rating tool and is basically a great guideline for following the process. Also, City of Austin programs, the fact that we're situated here in the city, tremendous benefit from Austin Energy, their multifamily rebate program. We're expecting as much as $10,000 to $12,000 for the Spring Terrace project. That's still pending. There's also the consultants at the Green Building Program, and of course the solar rebate program. There's also water conservation incentives. And lastly, but not least, there is the fact that in order to meet the green affordable housing challenge, I believe one needs to understand how design and development are inextricably intertwined, as it were. That you really can't have one without the other and do a good green affordable housing project. And that means absolutely an integrated design process. And that is required by the Green Communities Initiative. You have to have at least one charrette. You have to document it. You have to basically document who was there, what was said. And I think this is key. And just to highlight how design and development can be so closely linked, our equity partner for the tax credits is another branch of Enterprise. And they are aware that we're following the Enterprise Green Communities Initiative. And they know that we're required to implement all cost-effective energy efficiency measures that will pay back within 10 years. They know we have to do that. And they like that because they're in it for 15 years. Their investment is for 15 years. They basically reap rewards for 15 years. And so the fact that they know that you're following that gives them a warm fuzzy. And they also have insight into what are you doing with the windows, what are you doing with the HVAC. And so their design and development, the development being where the money's coming from, are really closely linked. with that story, I'll conclude, and here's a couple of websites. I do want to point out that the Rose Fellowship website is new and chock full of great information. There's 4 new fellowships that were just posted the 20th of February, and the deadline is April 15th. And www.community design is the Association of Community Design, which has new life now, and another great organization which does something similar to the Rose Fellowship is Design Corps. And then I also have the Center for Maximum Potential Building Systems link up there because they're a tremendous resource. They're how I got my start in this business. So thank you all for your attention.
I want to commend you on your focus on rental housing, because truly affordable housing is more often than not owner-occupied, and it's always a big need, and it's not always as exciting. But for owner-occupied housing, how would you envision ACDDC helping the homeowner community to maintain affordability and to stay in homes in a green context? What kind of programs would you envision that you could participate in?
One example, there's another startup nonprofit in Austin called Green Homes. The mission of Green Homes is to basically renovate existing housing stock in as green a way as possible, and then use city funding and other sources to make that affordable. Okay, so the expertise that Green Homes has as far as green building is myself, because I'm on the board, but I could definitely see how the Community Design Center would provide that expertise to show them as far as what standards to apply, how to connect with rebate programs, etc. Outside of that, we've had very preliminary discussions with folks like Mark Rogers at Guadalupe Neighborhood Development Corporation. They do single-family for sale affordable housing. They own some land where they're going to be doing a new development. So it would be working with the housing groups, some of which don't have a lot of capacity for development. Another way to look at this is for some of these really small housing groups, just doing feasibility studies on sites would be a service that the Community Design Center could provide. What are the zoning issues? What are the infrastructure issues? Things that are a little bit thorny, but you run into right at the outset of a project as far as finding land. And so perhaps that as much as anything.
I'm wondering if there's any chance for your organization to become a broker, say with the City of Austin, whereby there could be some investment capital put into our housing stock, our aging and not so green housing stock, with some kind of a return for Austin Energy or the water utility to save costs in the long run, and to find a way for us as a citizenry to invest in existing housing stock with a modest return, but not funded by the owner occupants. Is there any discussion about something like that?
I haven't had that discussion, but what comes to mind is one of the bullets on the Austin Climate Protection Plan talked about doing energy efficiency assessments and a certain level of improvements upon the sale of every home after a certain milestone year. And I could see that there's going to be some, how Rich McNabb puts it, how does he say it, soft infrastructure?
The soft infrastructure, yes.
Soft infrastructure around that to say, well, how does that happen? How are the assessments done? Who decides what improvements need to be made? I could see the Design Center playing a role in that. And that would fit into some overall climate protection goal of being carbon neutral by such and such a time, et cetera. So it's tied into a larger goal for the city. As well as, of course, not having built big power plants.
Yeah. Well, it seems socialistic, but if I'm going to sell my house and I've already done all the things I can do to it, why should I spend $1,000 on my house when that $1,000 could be much better spent on someone else's house that I don't even know? But
yeah.
So I should still be able to.
So there you go with a fee in lieu of that comes into a pot. that can be used there. Yeah, haven't had that discussion. But I like the idea.
Okay, back to the sort of design development tension. Have you had, or have you noticed, or have you participated in a more conventional financing deal in the sense that Enterprise wasn't the people that were doing your tax credits? You were negotiating, or you had to negotiate more with commercial banks or other more conventional financiers. Do those more conventional finance entities get the trade-off between upfront costs and reduced life cycle costs? Is that beginning to kind of penetrate the more kind of conventional finance?
It's an excellent
environment?
question. I haven't had an experience with another. This is our first tax credit deal since I've been in Foundation Communities. So I don't have an experience with any other tax credit investor or syndicator. Now, a thought that comes to mind is calling Mark Rogers, Guadalupe Neighborhood Development Corporation. They hired Apollo as their syndicators. I think as far as that part of the deal has gone pretty smoothly. And they scored higher than Foundation Communities on their tax credit proposal. They were the one above us. We were both awarded credits. They were doing a 22 unit multifamily.
And what's the green component?
I don't know if there's.
Yeah, there's a green component to that. They're doing through smart housing, there's the green building program rating requirement.
There you go.
Articulate discussion that's been had about the starting up of the ACDDC in a more active phase and staffing issues in relationship to the university. Let's go with black.
So let me make sure I understand your question. The startup of the Austin Community Design and Development Center.
It's spinning off from
Spin. Thank you. Registries. Okay. At the moment, the Austin Community Design and Development Center is an informal program of foundation communities. Because we got the tax credit award for the Skyline Terrace project, we had a design project on the boards. Thus, they wanted me to stay. And thus, at the same time, I was planning to do this design center. And so our executive director said, well, we'll make you an informal program with foundation communities. However, when we don't have anything on the boards, we don't really need you anymore, so then we'll spin you off. So what does that mean? That means that I don't have a direct salary from foundation communities anymore, and I'm highly motivated to fundraise. And that could happen as early as January 08, in which case we would be looking for funds now to fund an office and a staff, which I would hope to be a member of. And that staff would include not just architectural design folks, but people with planning backgrounds and otherwise. Does that get your question? Okay. My hope is that Foundation Communities has another project on the boards. They spin us off anyway, and they're our biggest client. And that's what's happened to other Rose Fellows who started community design centers. It happened in Virginia. That is a hope. We've looked at ways to create some bread and butter type of income for the design center. That has ranged from actively pursuing renovations of multifamily apartment complexes to sustainable design consulting, which I did before I became a Rose Fellow for the Center for Maximum Potential Building Systems. And then you get into the issue of, well, who are you consulting for? Are your clients still low and moderate income individuals, families, and neighborhoods, or is it
Ultimate user.
is it whoever's creating the domain or whatever? So if we can get into those issues, then we'll cross that bridge. Yeah, we might have to pay some tax on some of the activities that we do, and that's okay too. Just gotta have a good account. Right? Well, and I also should point out that we have gotten as far as we have by incorporating in Texas and applying for a 501c3 status through the pro bono attorney services of Baker Botts in Houston. And we connected with them through Texas C-Bar. And they've been absolutely amazing to work with.
Well, maybe that's a good place to wrap up. Thanks again to Michael for coming.
Thank you all.